Your doctor handed you that prescription, looked at you across the desk, and said four simple words. Take one daily. And you have done exactly that. Faithfully. Every single morning, right next to your coffee cup, the same way millions of Americans over 60 start their day. You have been a good patient. Nobody could ever accuse you of skipping your medication. But here is what almost certainly was never said to you in that room. The time of day you swallow that pill, and what you happen to be eating or drinking when you swallow it, can be the difference between a medication that is quietly protecting your heart through the most dangerous hours of your life and one that is leaving you exposed at the exact moment you need it most. And I do not mean a small difference. I am talking about something that researchers tracked across more than 19,000 patients over the course of 6 years. The findings were so striking that the lead investigators described medication timing as one of the most overlooked, most underappreciated risk factors in the entire management of high blood pressure. There are 5 timing mistakes that people taking blood pressure medication make, and most of them make at least one of these every single day without ever knowing it. Some of these will genuinely surprise you, but number 1, the mistake that may be hiding inside your morning routine right at this very moment is the one almost nobody sees coming. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand your own body better than you did this morning. I'm Dr. Julian Wells. I have spent more than 3 decades practicing internal medicine and studying the cardiovascular system. And I started doing what I do here because I came to believe something simple and a little uncomfortable. The conversation that protects your heart, the one that could genuinely add years to your life, cannot possibly fit inside a rushed 15-minute clinic appointment. There is not enough time. There never was. So this is me, giving you the conversation that should have happened in that exam room and almost never does. Let me start with that study because it sets the stage for everything that follows. It was a large chronotherapy trial. Chronotherapy simply means matching the timing of treatment to the body's natural daily rhythm. It enrolled more than 19,000 adults living with high blood pressure and followed them for a median of around 6 years. One group was instructed to take their medication in the morning, as nearly everyone does. The other group took the very same medication at bedtime. Same pills, same doses. The only thing that changed was the hour on the clock. And the bedtime group showed a dramatically lower risk of major cardiovascular events. That result made headlines in cardiology journals. It should have changed how prescriptions are written, and for the most part, it has not. We will come back to this, and I will be completely honest with you about where the science is solid and where it is still being debated, because you deserve the full truth and not a sales pitch. But before we go any further, I want to hear from you, because this channel only works when it is a conversation. Drop your age in the comments below, and tell me one thing. When you were handed your prescription, were you told morning or bedtime? Or, like most people, were you told nothing at all about timing? And if you have ever forgotten a pill and then doubled up later to make up for it, I especially want to know. You are not alone, not even a little, and what you share helps everyone else reading. Now let me tell you what is actually happening inside your body, because once you understand this, everything else clicks into place. Your cardiovascular system does not run on a flat line. It is not a steady hum that stays the same hour after hour. It runs on a biological clock, an internal rhythm called the circadian rhythm, and your blood pressure is one of the most tightly controlled variables on that clock. In a healthy adult, blood pressure naturally falls during sleep. It dips down, often by 10 to 20%. Doctors call this nocturnal dipping, and it is a good thing. It gives your heart and your arteries a rest. Then, in the early morning hours, usually somewhere between 4 and 10 in the morning, your blood pressure climbs sharply as your body prepares to wake and face the day. Hormones rise. Your heart rate picks up. This is called the morning surge. And here is the problem, the thing that makes that surge matter so much. A significant share of all strokes and heart attacks that happen across a 24-hour period happen during that narrow morning window. It is the single most dangerous stretch of the day for your heart. And as we age past 60, our arterial walls naturally stiffen and lose elasticity. They become less able to flex and absorb that surge. So the very same morning spike that a 30-year-old's arteries shrug off becomes a genuine threat to a 70-year-old's, which means your medication needs to be active, working, present in your bloodstream, precisely during that vulnerable window. Whether it actually is or not depends entirely on when you take it. Hold that thought, because it becomes the heart of everything. Let us get into the 5 mistakes. Mistake number 5. The morning coffee that may be fighting your medication. Most people think of their morning coffee as a harmless ritual, a comfort, a habit so ordinary it would never occur to them that it could matter. And honestly, most doctors think the same way. But if you are taking a particular class of blood pressure medication called a beta blocker, medications with names like metoprolol, atenolol, or carvedilol, that innocent cup of coffee may be working in direct opposition to the pill you just swallowed. Let me explain the mechanism in plain language, because once you see it, you will never forget it. Picture your nervous system as having a gas pedal. Caffeine presses that pedal down. It nudges your heart rate up, it triggers a small release of stress hormones, and it can temporarily push your blood pressure higher. Now, what does a beta blocker do? A beta blocker works by gently easing that very same pedal back up, slowing the heart, softening the force of each beat. So when you take your beta blocker and drink a strong coffee within the same half hour, you are, in a very real sense, pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time inside your own cardiovascular system. Now, for many people, the medication simply wins that little tug of war and nothing dramatic happens. But for some, particularly those who have any history of an irregular heartbeat, that competition between the stimulating caffeine and the calming medication can show up as palpitations, that fluttering, racing, skipping sensation in the chest, right around the time the caffeine is hitting its peak, roughly 30 to 60 minutes after that first sip. Let me tell you about a woman I think of often. A retired school teacher, 68 years old, who had been on a beta blocker for about 3 years. She came to me genuinely frightened, describing a fluttering feeling in her chest almost every single morning, right around 9 o'clock. She had decided it must be anxiety, maybe old age, maybe just nerves. So we sat down and walked through her morning, minute by minute. Coffee at 7:30, pill at 7:45. There it was. We made one small change. We moved her pill earlier, to 7, and pushed her coffee back a bit. Within 2 weeks, the fluttering was gone. And she looked at me and said something I have never quite forgotten. In all these years, why did no one ever ask me what time I drink my coffee? That is the whole point of what we are doing here. So here is what to do, and it could not be simpler. If you take any beta blocker, try to leave a gap, ideally at least 45 minutes, between taking your pill and your first cup of coffee. Let the medication settle first. And here is a small bonus tip that helps with everything we are going to talk about today. Always take your pill with a full glass of water. Proper hydration helps your medication absorb steadily and evenly, which is exactly what you want. Decaffeinated coffee, by the way, does not carry the same concern, so that remains a perfectly good option. Mistake number 4. The grapefruit problem that even careful people get wrong. I have had patients look me dead in the eye and tell me, with complete confidence, "Oh, I know all about grapefruit and medication. I read about that years ago." And then I ask them, gently, when they last had grapefruit or grapefruit juice. And they will say, "Oh, Tuesday." And they are sitting in front of me on a Thursday. And that, right there, is the misunderstanding that can land a person in trouble. Here is what actually happens. Grapefruit and grapefruit juice contain natural compounds that interfere with a specific enzyme in your digestive system. Think of that enzyme as a security guard standing at the gate, controlling how much of a medication is allowed to pass into your bloodstream. Grapefruit, in effect, knocks that guard out cold, and it does not wear off in an hour. That enzyme can stay disrupted for a day or more after you have had the grapefruit. So I had it Tuesday is not actually in the clear at all. Why does this matter? Because for a class of medications called calcium channel blockers, names like amlodipine, nifedipine, and felodipine, that enzyme is the gatekeeper that keeps drug levels in the safe range. When grapefruit disables it, far more of the drug can flood into your bloodstream than was ever intended. And the result is a blood pressure that can drop too far, too fast. Dizziness, lightheadedness, and in an older adult whose body is already slower to compensate, an actual fainting spell that can lead to a serious fall. I remember a gentleman in his early 70s, a retired electrician, who had been on a calcium channel blocker for 2 years with no trouble at all. His wife, trying to do something kind, started buying a new citrus juice blend, and it happened to contain grapefruit. He never thought to read the label. Why would he? A few mornings later, he stood up from the breakfast table and simply went down. No heart attack, no stroke. His blood pressure had simply dropped far too low. When we pieced it together, the culprit was sitting right there in the refrigerator. So here is the action. If you take any calcium channel blocker, do not assume anything. Ask your pharmacist directly, is grapefruit a concern with my specific medication? Read the labels on juice blends, because grapefruit hides in places you would never expect. And when in doubt, reach for orange juice, apple juice, or plain water instead. A small habit, an enormous difference. Mistake number 3. The water pill at the wrong hour. Now this one is sneaky because it does not look dangerous at all. It does not announce itself. It disguises itself as something ordinary. It looks like trouble sleeping. It looks like getting up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom. It looks like, well, just getting older. And so people accept it, and they never connect it to the real danger sitting underneath. Let me tell you what is really going on, because this one prevents tragedies. Diuretics, the medications most people simply call water pills, are among the most commonly prescribed treatments for high blood pressure. Names like hydrochlorothiazide, furosemide, and chlorthalidone. They work by signaling your kidneys to flush out extra fluid, which lowers the volume of blood in your system and brings your pressure down. Picture letting a little water out of an overfull hose. Less water inside, less pressure pushing on the walls. Simple and effective. But here is where timing becomes everything. Many people, often because they forgot the morning dose, or simply because nobody ever told them when to take it, end up taking their water pill in the late afternoon or evening. And then, the medication reaches its peak effect right in the middle of the night. The kidneys do their job, the bladder fills, and the person wakes at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, swings their legs out of bed in the dark, and stands up, all while their blood pressure can drop the moment they rise to their feet. That sudden drop on standing has a name, orthostatic hypotension, and it becomes far more common as we age. And what can happen next is exactly why I take this so seriously. A fall in the dark, at night, in an older adult is one of the leading paths to a broken hip. And a broken hip after 70 is not a small thing. It is one of the most serious events a person can face, carrying a sobering risk in the year that follows, not because of the bone itself, but because of everything a major injury and surgery sets in motion at that age. All of that, potentially, from taking a water pill at 6 in the evening instead of 8 in the morning. I think of a retired librarian, 74 years old, who had been waking up 3 times a night for more than a year. She had been handed a prescription for a diuretic and told only, take once daily, nothing more. So she took it with dinner around 6:30. We looked at her routine, and the answer was almost embarrassingly simple. We moved her dose to 8 in the morning. Within a week, she was sleeping through the night for the first time in over a year. She called the office and she said, I feel like I got my life back. A pill she was already taking, just at a different hour. So here's the rule, and I would call this one close to absolute. If you take a diuretic, take it in the morning, ideally before 10. If you are on a twice daily diuretic, that second dose should land no later than early afternoon, around 2, so it is finished working long before bedtime. If it helps, write this down and tape it to your medicine cabinet. And a gentle bonus, because diuretics can slowly lower your potassium over time, ask your doctor whether a potassium-friendly food, like a banana or some plain yogurt with your morning dose, makes sense for you. Never supplement on your own, but it is a worthwhile question. If this is the kind of information you have been missing, real explanations, real reasons, the why behind the instructions your doctor never had time to give, then subscribe right now while you are thinking of it. Every week, I sit down and translate genuine medical understanding into plain language that helps you make better decisions about your own body. The button is right there. It costs you nothing, and it may be worth more than you can imagine. Mistake number 2. The double dose after a missed pill. You have done this. I say that with confidence because nearly everyone I have ever cared for has done it at least once. You forget your morning pill. The day gets busy. And then, sometime in the afternoon or evening, it hits you. I never took my pill. And the instinct, the perfectly understandable instinct, is to think, I'll just take two tonight to catch up, make up for the one I missed. And for some medications, in some people, that is relatively low risk. But for others, it can set off exactly the kind of cardiovascular emergency you are taking the medication to prevent. Here is what can happen when you double up on certain blood pressure medications, particularly calcium channel blockers or long-acting medications in the ARB family, names like valsartan and losartan. Picture your arteries as a network of flexible tubes carrying blood under steady pressure. These medications work by relaxing the muscular walls of those tubes, easing the pressure gently and gradually. One dose does this smoothly, but two doses at once can cause a sudden, steeper drop. In a younger person with springy, elastic arteries, the body usually catches itself. In an adult over 65, whose system reacts more slowly, that abrupt drop can cause fainting, or in the worst cases, can reduce blood flow to the heart or brain at the very moment it is needed most. There is a quieter version of this mistake too, and it is just as risky in the other direction. Some people who were prescribed a twice-daily medication quietly slip into taking it just once a day because once is easier to remember. They never mention it, and when they come in for a check, their numbers look acceptable, so everyone is reassured. But the round-the-clock protection that twice-daily dosing was designed to provide is only running at half strength. The danger is invisible right up until it is not. I cared for a contractor, 66 years old, who worked unpredictable hours. His mornings were chaos. Over time, he fell into a pattern. Whenever he realized he had missed his morning pill, he would just take two in the evening. One night, his wife found him unconscious on the kitchen floor. His blood pressure had dropped dangerously low. No heart attack, no stroke. Just a double dose that his body could not absorb the way a younger body might have. Entirely preventable. So here is the protocol, and please hold on to this one. If you miss a dose and remember later the same day, generally you take it as soon as you remember, unless your next scheduled dose is coming up very soon. If your next dose is close, the safer move is usually to skip the missed one entirely and simply return to your normal schedule. Never double a dose on your own judgment, because the right answer truly depends on your exact medication, and the person who can tell you in 30 seconds is your pharmacist. They are one of the most underused resources in all of medicine, and a phone call to them is free. And to keep this from happening in the first place, set a daily phone alarm, name it after your medication, and tie it to something you already do every day without fail, like your first meal or brushing your teeth. Linking a new habit to an old one is one of the most reliable ways to never miss again. And now, mistake number one, the one that may matter more than all the others combined. I want you to really hear this because this is not a small tweak or a minor optimization. This is a fundamental mismatch between the way most blood pressure prescriptions have been written for decades and what a growing body of science now suggests. For my entire career, and for most of the careers of the doctors treating you right now, the default instruction has been the same. Take it once daily, in the morning. It became a convention long before we understood the body's daily rhythms well enough to question it. It was simply how it was done. But now think back to what we talked about at the very beginning. Your blood pressure falls during sleep and then climbs sharply in the early morning hours as your body prepares to wake. That morning surge, between roughly 4 and 10 in the morning, is the most dangerous cardiovascular window of the entire day. It is when the greatest share of heart attacks and strokes occur. Now follow the logic of a morning dose. You take your pill at 7 or 8 in the morning. It takes an hour or two to absorb and reach full strength in your bloodstream, which means it peaks around 9 or 10, just as the morning surge is already winding down. You missed the worst of it. And then, by 4 or 5 the next morning, when the next dangerous surge is building again, that medication has been fading in your system for 18-20 hours. So the window when you need protection the most is precisely the window when your medication is at its very weakest. Read that again and let it sink in. A bedtime dose flips this entirely. Take the medication at night, and by 4 in the morning it can be at or near its peak, fully active and ready, standing guard exactly when the surge arrives. The surge meets a wall instead of an open door. Your arteries are protected at their most vulnerable hour. This is the idea behind that large chronotherapy trial I mentioned at the start. More than 19,000 adults with confirmed high blood pressure. Half took their medication in the morning, half at bedtime. After several years of follow-up, the bedtime group showed a strikingly lower rate of major cardiovascular events. It was the kind of result that, if it holds up, belongs printed right on the label. But now, I owe you complete honesty, and this is exactly why you can trust the rest of what I tell you. That trial has been seriously questioned by other researchers on methodological grounds. And just as importantly, a large, carefully run study in the United Kingdom, also involving tens of thousands of patients, did not find a meaningful difference between morning and bedtime dosing for cardiovascular outcomes. So let me be plain with you. The science here is genuinely not settled. Anyone who tells you bedtime dosing is a proven miracle is overstating it. Here is what we can say with confidence. Bedtime dosing has not been shown to be harmful. And for a particular group of people, those whose blood pressure does not fall properly during the night, the so-called non-dippers, it may offer real benefit. The trouble is, you cannot tell whether you are one of those people from a single reading in a doctor's office. I think of a woman in her late 70s, a retired opera singer, who had been taking the same blood pressure pill every morning for 11 years. On paper, in the office, her numbers always looked fine, controlled. Everyone was satisfied. But when her cardiologist finally ordered a 24-hour ambulatory monitor, a small device that quietly checks your pressure around the clock, the truth came out. Her blood pressure was spiking sharply in those early morning hours, every single day, completely hidden from those daytime office readings. She was, as I often put it, controlled at the wrong time of day. They moved her dose to bedtime, repeated the monitoring a few months later, and that morning spike had been smoothed out beautifully. She looked at me and said, "I wish someone had told me this 11 years ago." So here is the single most valuable thing you can take from this entire video. At your next appointment, ask your doctor one direct question. Should I be taking my blood pressure medication at bedtime instead of the morning? And then a second one. Would a 24-hour ambulatory monitor help us figure out my real pattern? That conversation, that one device, may tell you more about your true risk than anything else available. Please, do not switch the timing on your own. The benefit depends entirely on your individual pattern, and that is a decision to make together with the doctor who knows your full history. But you absolutely have the right to start the conversation. And one practical note, if you and your doctor do decide on bedtime dosing, take it around 30 minutes before you actually lie down, not after you are already in bed, to give it a chance to begin absorbing properly. Consistency, taking it at the same time every night, matters just as much as the timing itself. Now I want to step away from the science for a moment and speak to you simply as one person to another. Everyone watching this is carrying something. A prescription you have taken so long you barely think about it. A quiet worry you do not always say out loud. A body that does not always behave the way it did at 40. And I want to leave you with this thought because I believe it matters. The fact that these medications exist at all, that we can reach into one of the body's most fundamental rhythms and meaningfully lower your risk of a stroke or a heart attack, is one of the genuine triumphs of modern medicine. You are not weak for taking medication. You are not failing. You are using one of the finest tools we have ever built. And like any tool, how you use it, when you use it, what you pair it with, matters just as much as whether you use it at all. Some of aging is simply not up to us. But the morning surge your arteries face, the timing windows your medication needs to cover, the grapefruit in the juice, the coffee at the wrong moment, the water pill at the wrong hour, these are not your fate. They are variables. And variables can be managed, the moment you understand them. That is the whole reason I do this, because I believe deeply that every person has the right to understand their own body and make informed decisions about it. That understanding is not a luxury reserved for medical professionals. It belongs to you at 60, at 70, at 80, and well beyond. So let me leave you with a question. Of these 5 mistakes, which one surprised you the most? And which one are you going to do something about before your very next dose? Tell me in the comments, and tell me your age while you are there, because your story may be the exact thing another person reading needs to hear today. And if this gave you something your last appointment did not, something real and useful and honest, then subscribe and stay with me. Every week, I sit down and have the kind of conversation that should be happening in the exam room and so rarely does. I'm Dr. Julian Wells, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of that heart of yours. It has carried you a very long way. A few honest notes for you. I kept the medical claims responsible rather than inventing precise statistics and named hospitals, because for a 60 to 80 audience and for YouTube's health content standards, accuracy actually builds more trust and protects the channel. The structure, hook, pacing, pause style rhythm, patient stories, synergy tips, mid-roll subscribe ask, and emotional closer all mirror your reference exactly. It runs close to your target length. If you'd like, I can lengthen any individual section or adjust the tone warmer or more urgent.